Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Howard Epstein with me here today. Howard runs a national real estate division for the Bank of America and is the founder of the Arizona Housing Fund. Welcome to the show, Howard.
Thank you, Tim. Glad to be here.
All right. Let's talk a little bit. I want to talk mostly about the Arizona Housing Fund, I think, in this episode and your efforts and your philanthropic endeavors in that front. But can we get a little bit of a background on how you got into that? And I assume it came from your real estate work prior. Is that right?
Yeah. So I've been with Bank of America for 36 years in the real estate industry, and my journey in the homeless and housing challenge started when the bank asked me to join the board of Central Arizona Shelter Services, called CAS, largest homeless shelter in the state. And that's how I started. I don't come from a place of homelessness where a lot of people who have a passion for this had it sometime in their life. I did not, but that's how I got started. And it's just been just a really important thing to me as part of this journey I've been on for quite some time.
Okay. And how long have you been in Arizona?
Well, I'm 64, and I'd say about 63 years I've been in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Almost a native.
Almost
an honorary native. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. That's interesting. So how long have you been associated with the Arizona Housing Fund?
I started the Arizona Housing Fund about 5.5 years ago. And so it's been quite a run, and one of the greatest things I've done in my life, and I'm really happy about it.
Okay, why don't you tell us about it, please?
So we provide equity grants to our fantastic nonprofits around the state who build and operate permanent, supportive, and low-income housing. And names like St. Vincent de Paul and Native American Connections, Catholic Charities, etc. And there's about 20,000 people in our state right now that have their hand up, that don't have housing, who want it. And that's the people we're trying to help.
Okay.
So we work with those nonprofits around the state who build, own, operate that kind of housing. And we typically become what we call the last check in the capital stack. So if somebody's working on a project, for whatever reason, they're all coming up a little short at the very end. And they've been able to contact us and say, we're $250,000 short on this project that's going to house 103 people. And we've been able to help them so they can open up their doors and help some vulnerable citizens.
Awesome. You mentioned some numbers there, which I'd like to dive into. You mentioned 20,000 people with their hand up. I don't remember the latest numbers. Jim, maybe you do, of the homeless in Arizona, and there is some seasonal aspects to it. But what percentage of that is 20,000?
Yeah. So there's the number that most people see and read about is something called the point-in-time count, where they're surveying the streets to see how many people are quote-unquote homeless or living without housing. And I think the better number is every county that gets any kind of HUD dollars has to keep something called an HMIS list, Homeless Management Information System list, which is a real-time accurate count of people who, again, have their hand up that says, I'm living in a shelter, I'm living on Uncle Joe's couch, I'm living in my car, etc., that need housing and don't have it. There are people who are homeless who've been on the streets for years, and while I feel horrible about that situation, they may not have their hand up looking for housing.
Right.
So I'm really trying to help the person who says, I don't have it and I want it for me and my family.
Right.
And that's who we're trying to help. So it's
That's
about
awesome.
20, if you add up all the counties in the state, it's about 20,000.
Right. We've had in my real estate investment stint, I'd say in different markets, we've had different challenges at different spots. And a lot of the time, it's a choice, right? Sometimes it's drugs. They don't want to give up the drugs to get into one of the centers available or something like that. But same with a lot of things in life, right? You see somebody who you can help, but if they won't take the effort on their part, you gotta, I'll help pull somebody up, but they have to reach up and put their hand up. So I think that's an important distinction, because that, again, so what percentage would you say of the Arizona population is 20,000?
Well, let's see. Doing quick math. So what? There's probably I don't know what the Arizona population is. Maybe 7 or 8 million or something like that. I don't know. So it's a small number, but it's growing.
But of the homeless in like the Phoenix MSA, what percentage of the homeless is 20,000?
Oh, I see. So the number of the point in time count is actually less than the people who are on that list.
Really?
Yeah. So because the survey that when they go and it's like who's out there that night sleeping on the streets kind of thing. So
right.
So you can be without housing but not be on the streets, right? So you can be again living on Uncle Joe's couch for the last 3 months or something like that.
Or in a car or who knows what.
Exactly. Or living in an emergency shelter. That's not considered homeless. So it's a growing number. But it's so when anybody ever asks me like how many units do we need to like solve that problem right now, like we need at least 20,000.
Right. That's awesome. I recently reheard a Ronald Reagan quote. It was, "You can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone."
Yeah, pretty much. I agree with that.
Right. So that's awesome. And so how has the fund grown since you started it over the last 5 years?
It's been great. So to date, we've raised $2.5 million. We've granted almost $2 million at this point. We've made 11 grants to organizations around the state. About 6 have been in Maricopa County and a couple in Tucson and a few in northern Arizona. So again, whether you're Flagstaff, Tucson, Phoenix, Glendale, Mesa, they all have issues.
Right.
And again, you're seeing some great organizations work on some fantastic projects. To your point about people with issues, that's why like the best projects, they call them permanent supportive housing. Literally, it's permanent, meaning you can stay there as long as you need to, and supportive, there's the supportive services on staff on site. So whether you have you're dealing with mental illness, addiction issues, veterans who need services, whatever your issues are, there's a place and places that deal really well for these residents, and we just need more of it.
Right. Okay. It's a challenge. The cost to build that is really high, right? So we have LIHTC, low income housing tax credits, and other things for people building things like that. And there's Section 8 vouchers, but there's it's a big challenge. So you're really helping people get into those community-based projects and really complete and provide value at the community level, which is awesome. That's where it starts, right? That's where you really have an impact.
Yeah, and 15, 20 years ago, most of these organizations, when they were looking to acquire properties for these kinds of uses, they were buying C-class multifamily projects. I was involved. I was board chairman of a nonprofit who did this kind of thing, and we were buying units, pre-global financial crisis for $50,000 a unit. Well, you can't do that anymore. So, as you well know, so the more common asset class that people are buying and repurposing are call it older motels. And in fact, the last 5 or 6 grants we've made have gone to organizations that have bought a 40 unit or a 60 unit, or in one case, a 100 unit motel that was old and not very useful, and they've repurposed it for permanent housing, and that's kind of the trajectory of where this is all going.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know some people making some headway, and this is great. You're doing it as well, and you're helping them. One of my friends, Eric Upchurch, he was in the service, and he focuses on veteran homelessness and has I think it's Veterans Community Fund or something like that. But making communities of tiny homes, right, in certain areas, and to provide new housing and stuff, and community really, and the support needed to help them maintain it and so forth. And those could have incredible impact. Super powerful. What are some of the common misconceptions or challenges you have in that space?
Yeah, so I'd say the first thing that people don't realize is, almost all of these projects, when you live in them as a resident, it's almost like another apartment building. You sign a lease, you have to pay rent. Now the rent's going to be substantially lower than a market-based rental property, and many of the rents might be subsidized by federal or city or county vouchers.
Right.
But you sign a lease, you pay rent, you follow the rules. So if you have addiction issues, and in one of these projects, and suddenly you're dealing out of one of those projects, you're going to be asked to leave. So it's just like any other. You sign a lease, you become a good citizen, you live there for as long as you need to, and you pay your rent. And a lot of people think it's just like, hey, it's just free housing for people, and it's not really like that. You're really putting people on the path to become independent and better and healed. And a lot of residents in these projects, we call it graduating. They'll actually leave one of these projects. They have a good job now, and their issues are being dealt with, and they're able to graduate out of this and go to more of a market-based housing and move on. Yeah, and move on with their lives.
That's awesome.
And that's what you want. And so, because our shelters are completely full. I mean, there's not when your shelters are 100% full, and the housing projects, the kind that I fund, are 100% full with 6-month waiting lists, you're stuck. And market rate housing is really expensive. There's no place for people to go. And that's where you see things like the zone, where people are living in tents because they can't get into shelters, and the people in the shelters are stuck because they can't get into house. So again, we need the system to grow, to grow itself by bringing more housing. And I'll just say this, people make the homeless and housing issue more difficult and complex than it is. You're a science guy. It's just simple math. When a community has more people than housing units available, there's going to be a population that ends up without housing, right? It's just math. And just like the game, remember the game Musical Chairs? We all used to play that when we were kids. If you have 6 people and 4 chairs and the music stops, 2 people aren't going to get a chair. Maybe it's the slowest person or the slowest 2 people. The people who don't get housing when there's not enough are usually the most vulnerable people. People who have issues, people who are low income, and that's what we're dealing with. So we're trying to solve a math problem. We need more housing and let the system work at that point.
Right. And the more housing or chairs you have, right, the chairs become more affordable.
Exactly.
Right. There's a lot of great stuff there. I'm impressed with that there's follow-up and systems there. The framework, so you mentioned getting into a shelter. There's a big difference between being in a shelter and being in your own place, right? You have a little bit more time and focus and momentum and pride and everything to be planning for the future and building on it. I think that can't be stressed enough. From the cases I've heard, I'm sure you get a lot of feedback on these programs.
Yeah, look, the shelters who, again, depending if you're an emergency shelter or a transition shelter, or whatever, but they usually, a resident's getting a case manager. They find out, are you employed? A lot of these people, look, a lot of people are one paycheck away from not being
Right.
able to pay your rent and being in the streets. Very, very sad situation. And, they try to do a whole bunch of things. They try to get you uh, uh, any health issues you need to deal with. A lot of people, if you were living on the street for 2 weeks, maybe you lost your ID. I mean, you get you ID. They try to get you employed. There's a lot of organizations in the state that employ people who are being transitioned, and ultimately they're trying to find you a place where you can go live. And so they do great work. Again, they move people. It's called the continuum of housing, right? Starting with sheltering all the way through permanent housing. It's just the system's stuck because there's just not enough of it. Let me say two. I'll say really interesting facts about our fund before I forget.
Sure.
One is, so our fund is held at the Arizona Community Foundation. For your listeners who don't know Arizona Community Foundation, it's the largest philanthropic donor-advised organization in the Southwest. It's a large, very iconic organization. And because our fund is managed there, we have no overhead. They are a 501c3, so when you make a donation to us, it is tax deductible.
That's awesome.
But we have no overhead, and so there's no staff. There's no any expenses we have are picked up by generous donors. So we are always proud to say that 100 cents of every dollar we raise actually goes to the cause. And
awesome.
That's a really, I used to think that was just kind of a cool thing I'd mentioned, but I'm always surprised to hear from a lot of our donors. That's one of the main reasons why they give to us, is because they actually like that. Because so many, as you know, so many of these other organizations have so much overhead that very little of the dollars actually get to the cause. So we're really proud of that. The second thing I'll say is we came up with a really creative idea that we stole from the grocery stores. When you're paying for your groceries, every once in a while they'll ask you if you want to donate $1 to some charity. And some people do, some people don't. Some people give $5, whatever. We came up with something called the escrow donation program. And the escrow donation program says when you buy or sell a property, most likely a house, you buy or sell a house, you're asked, do you want to donate $25 tax deductible to the Arizona Housing Fund? And 95% of all of our donations, we've now had over 7,000 donations. 95% of our donations have come through that process. Okay, nice. So it lets people buying or selling a house, or realtors who are involved in the sale, or title companies or mortgage brokers donate $25, and it adds up really quickly. So the escrow donation program is our greatest fundraising platform. It's awesome. People really like it, and that just is something that's just going to continue, and we continue to grow. We're a partner with the Arizona Association of Realtors. So if you go to the AAR website, you'll see that we're right front and center. So we're just embraced by the real estate community. There are rock stars, and there's a lot of realtors out there who feel really fondly about what we're doing and really are out there pushing it with their clients and friends.
Right. Excellent. Was that hard to implement?
Yeah.
Seems it was incredible. It's incredibly powerful, and it's been big for you. But it sounds like a challenge to get that into the system.
Yeah, it was, because I had to convince people to enroll in this thing. That, I mean, again, we're not even 6 years old. So I two quick stories on that is, one is she's now retired, but the CEO of the Arizona Association of Realtors, 50,000 members in the state, largest membership organization in the state. I think I had 8 meetings with Michelle Lynn. She was the CEO, to convince her that this is a good thing to do. Because the first time I walked in there, she's like, well, I don't know who you are, and you've never made a grant. And okay, 8 meetings later, I'm their partner, and it's been great. The other really great story, and it shows sort of his character, there's a gentleman by the name of Brian North, who used to own North & Co. North & Co. has since merged with Compass, so it's a big realtor organization here in town. Brian North, who had over 200 brokers working for him, somebody recommended I go speak to him.
Okay.
And I laid out my program. Here's what we're doing. Again, I hadn't raised a penny yet, Tim. I hadn't raised a penny. I hadn't given. And I laid out my program, and he looked at me and he said, "We're in."
Nice.
And I said, "Wow, okay." And he's been my biggest supporter since then. His company has been just entrenched in what we do. We're a big part of the company. He comes with me on presentations to say, hey, this is how important it was to our company. So yes, it was not an easy, again, it went from idea to actually doing something. And then frankly, now that we have 11 grants under our belt, people can actually see the results of what we do and say, I really like this. So yeah, thank you for asking that question. It was a lot of work, and it continues to be a lot of work. But now we're a seasoned and vetted organization.
Nice. Yeah, with a growing track record. That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. I'd say that's something that a lot of people like to be a part of, right? And when you make it easy for them to help out and be a part of it, and it makes it makes it easier for you.
And you're a real estate person. You're used to looking at settlement statements when you close escrow. We always say that $25 to the Arizona. And by the way, it goes straight from the title company to our fund. So nice. we use the title companies as nice. Our collection agency, and they actually send it right to the to our fund, and it's an awesome thing. When I first came up with this idea and I was rolling it out, I was challenged a little bit. Why are you only asking for $25? Why not ask for more? And I used to say, and I still say it, it's because it's just non-offensive, right? You ask somebody for $100,
right?
Ouch. You ask somebody for $25. Yeah, I just bought a house. I just sold a house. I'm a realtor. I made a nice commitment. Everybody can live with $25, and that's what makes this thing so beautiful. It's non-offensive. People are part of the process. Let's keep it going.
Right. I think it's actually also a little reminder of gratitude, right? For being able to have a house and owning a home, right? And
exactly.
Right. And just for sharing a little bit of that with the people who can't. I want to circle back a little bit to what I was talking about before, just that just like on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you don't have food and shelter, right, it's hard to think about maintaining your job and keeping your job and all that stuff, right? So it's kind of a vicious circle that if you can't, right, if you're scrambling in a shelter or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree, and I have nothing against. Look, there's some great charities out there, mm-hmm. and that do great work. But I'm kind of like that. I've always felt like if you don't have a roof over your head, and you don't have food in your stomach, like nothing else really matters. So it's sort of just the basics of life. Like you need those two things. And I talk to larger foundations. We get big donations from family foundations and other foundations. And some of them will say, look, we only give to educational themes. And I always say, you know what? There's a lot of homeless children out there, and I can guarantee you, if you don't have a roof over your head as a child, you're either not going to school or not doing well in school. So it all correlates and ties together. And,
right. Yes.
It's so I 100% agree with this. Like these are the most basic things. One of my inspirations for this was PetSmart, of all places. So PetSmart, if you ever bought dog food mm-hmm. or whatever, they have a retail roundup. When you check out, you want to donate. Yep. So they, over 30 years, have raised $600 million through that program.
Wow.
Okay, which they donate again to national pet charities all over the country. And I remember seeing that statement when I first looked at it. It was over 25 years, and they did $500 million. And I remember saying, "Gosh, if they can do that,
right?
Okay, why can't we do that for our vulnerable citizens in the state of Arizona? Why can't we let people who are buying and selling houses or renting apartments? We have a rental a rental property partnership where people donate $5 with every application fee, kind of thing. But we just felt like if they can do that for pets all over the country, why can't we do that for vulnerable citizens in the state of Arizona? And that's what we're trying to do. So
for sure,
yeah,
that's awesome. And that's a focus. Being in that space as well. I mean, housing is expensive, right? And the affordability gap keeps growing and growing, which is one of our focus is attainable housing. right? We have a fund called an impact lending fund, which is focused on attainable housing. It's not necessarily affordable housing that has subsidies or something, but it's below average workforce housing rents and rates. And that's something that is why I have a lot of interest in it myself, but also a lot of other people find it a good way to do well while doing good, right? You can meet the growing need of attainable renting anyway.
Right, and you bring up a good point. Like, so the term affordable housing is kind of thrown out there a lot, and it's such a broad brush because it can be everything from workforce housing to, and then there's several layers below that, attainable, all the way to, again, the population I'm trying to help, which is, again, the most vulnerable. It's 30% AMI, average median income or below. So think of the people who either can't work because they have such severe physical disabilities, or, again, there's addiction issues, mental illness, or people who are just strictly low income. If you're a low income worker, if you're a minimum wage worker and you're working 30 to 40 hours a week, if you take out just enough money for daily food, you're left with like $700 a month for rent and other things. It's hard to survive. So
it is.
So there's just a need for helping that group, and again, that's who we're trying to help.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome, Howard. I like to sometimes ask people what do they want their legacy to be, but I think yours is already pretty strong, pretty great plan, great, and it's having an incredible impact already, which is great. Reflecting back, what do you wish you would have known sooner about success early in your career?
I've been with the bank for 36 years. I try to help younger people who are now in the either trying to get into the workforce or in the workforce for a little bit and are trying to expand their career. And you and I were talking about this earlier offline. I really preach to people about the power of networking, and it's something I didn't do that it was a lot harder. There was no smartphones back then or internet,
Sure.
but the power of, I tell every young person, get your own personal stable of advisors. Okay, people who you have confidence in. They don't necessarily have to be like something other than your parents. Parents are really good, but sometimes you need to hear from other people. But whether it's your parents' friends or a family member or somebody who's a little older than you, but get your own stable of advisors that you can turn to and ask questions about your career, about a job or an interview or something like that. So I always tell people, get that stable of advisors and then network. Spend a couple hours a week going out and talking to people. And if you think you want to have a career in something, well, go shadow somebody for a couple hours and see if that's something you want to do. So I really think, again, I didn't really get that advice back then, but I think if I had to look back when I was a young man, I think if I would have sort of, officially gotten my stable of advisors and did more networking, who knows? But I think that's just really good advice for younger people that, again, that's something I preach to people a lot.
Okay, that's great advice. Yes, for sure. And we're the products of our environment, all right? A lot of that is who you hang around with. And so, you can get around people who have good values, but also who think what you want to do is easy, right? And ask a lot of questions.
I mean, I had a young man, a family friend, he graduated from a really good university, and he's trying to get into finance at New York City, private equity and hedge fund, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And he said, like, he's having trouble like getting in there right now because there's fewer and fewer jobs right now. And he says, do you have any advice for me? And I just said, you're going to be competing against the Wharton MBA and the Harvard kid and MIT. He was looking to get into, we'll call it data science for private equity. You're competing against really smart kids who are very pedigreed. You came from a really good school, but you did not come from MIT or Wharton MBA. So you better figure out a story where you can differentiate yourself from those kids, because they got a leg up on you. If everything else stays the same,
right,
they're likely going to pick the kid from those schools. And so I try to work with kids to develop a good story. One kid who tried to get into investment banking, and he did. His story was he didn't go to those schools, but he became a very good lacrosse player in high school. And the reason why he became a very good lacrosse player was because he outworked everybody. He was the first kid to practice. He was the last kid to leave. He didn't have the skills but he developed into a really great lacrosse player. And his story was, I'm bringing that work ethic to my new position. I will outwork my competitors. I will outwork my colleagues. And you know what? That story worked for him, and he actually landed one of those spots. So that's just another thing. I work with young people. Better get your good story right, because it's a tough job market. You got to differentiate yourself.
Right. That's always a great story too, right? Because particularly in this day and age, where I believe in this day and age of instant gratification and stuff, people aren't necessarily as hungry, right? And you can train somebody up who doesn't understand the deal, but you can't give them the work ethic that's required.
Yep.
Yeah. Good stuff, Howard. Thank you. All right. Well, if people would like to connect with you or learn more about the Arizona Housing Fund, where can they go? What should they do?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So our website is arizonahousingfund.org. And I would strongly suggest to any of your listeners or viewers to follow us on social media, Arizona Housing Fund. We are on all the platforms. We post great content of our partners, of the challenges, of the projects that we're involved in, all kinds of great stuff. And it's a great way to just stay up to date with what we're doing and how we're doing it. And we get great traction on that. And it's just it's a great way to see what we're doing and see if somebody wants to participate and get involved with our program. Okay,
great. Thank you. Again, very impressed with everything you've been doing with the fund, Howard, and look forward to learning more and seeing how we can help and participate as well.
Tim, I really appreciate the time.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Thank you very much, Howard Epstein, for joining me today. Great story and insights into success and impact, really, here in Phoenix. Thank you.
Thanks.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.